All right, Adam, let's get on to the next topic here,
Sure.
which we are going to... What's one of the reoccurring topics we always seem to talk... I hate talking about it, but we talk about it like at least once every one or two podcasts.
Loot boxes.
Yep.
And just predatory practices in general.
Yeah. And we were sitting there saying, like, when is this shit going to start, like, getting noticed? Like, people on YouTube and us, like...
Lots of people are talking about it.
But no one's doing anything about it. Well, it seems that finally the ESRB is finally stepping in. Now, this isn't going to change anything.
You know why? Because there was that whole hearing.
Yeah.
The guy couldn't answer the fucking questions.
Yeah.
The government was like, why are you doing this? Why don't you think that this is predatory? Does this seem like gambling to you? And the guy's like, I can't answer that. I can't answer that.
So yeah, it hasn't looked good, and especially because the ESRB hasn't stepped in for a while. They're sure to jump in whenever somebody's like saying, "Oh, well, why is this character's head getting ripped off?" But whenever there's kids gambling on games and blowing their parents' money with no repercussions, that no one seems to bat an eye. But whenever cartoons are ripping each other's heads off, it's all of a sudden
it's
like
a problem.
It's a big problem that the ESRB needs to step into. So big problems with games like obviously the forefront of like Battlefront 2, Need for Speed Payback, Destiny 2, all of these in-game purchases that are just like
random number generated.
That aren't disclosed.
It's basically like a slot machine.
Yeah. They're not disclosed numbers. They don't tell you anything like that.
Yeah, your odds for getting certain items.
So people have been raising a shitload of alarms about with kids using credit cards and all that stuff. And,
Well, and those companies also hiring psychologists to figure out how to exploit people's psychology to make them want to buy these things.
Is that true?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Yeah, dude.
If that's true,
it's pretty dark.
That's dark as hell.
Yeah, when you look into this shit, they hire psychologists to learn how to exploit psychological weaknesses in people to make them want to buy these microtransactions that are random generated numbers.
Ugh. Ooh, that's awful.
Yep.
But so the ESRB posted out a big long paragraph talking about the update with now on the back of the box it will say in-game purchases if there are.
Yeah. Which I have some reservations about that wording.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead and explain what it is.
Yeah, they'll pretty much to summarize it, they've said starting soon the ESRB will begin assigning a brand new label to the physical games in-game purchases. This label, or as we call it, interactive element, will appear on boxes and wherever those games can be downloaded for all games that offer the ability to purchase digital goods or premiums with real-world currency. This includes features like bonus levels, skins, surprise items such as item packs, loot boxes, mystery rewards, music, virtual coins, and other forms of in-game currency, subscriptions, season pass, upgrades to disable, also upgrades to disable ads and more. We are also launching a new website, parenttools.org, to help raise awareness of helping tools that parents can use to manage the amount of time or money those crafty kids spend playing games. Why'd they have to throw that they're like...
Because they're talking to parents. They're not talking to people
that
actually fucking play games.
I know, but what are the crafty kids? What are they, fucking comedians? This is the first step of many. We'll continue to discuss how to further enhance our rating system with publishers, developers, gamers, and especially parents, and we'll continue to make adjustments as needs arise. Thank you for all your patience on this and your love from the games we rate, the ESRB. That was their Twitter post.
So I got a two-pronged attack to this already.
Okay.
I
mean, they pretty much covered everything that could be sold with real game currency.
That's one part of the problem. This allows them to hide random number generation or gambling mechanic microtransactions in the same exact definition as DLC.
They call it as surprise items.
Yeah, so they call it surprise items. But it allows them to hide it with DLC, level packs, skin packs, things that you buy and you actually get.
Yeah.
That, while it is mildly exploitative, it's not a problem with people that have gambling addictions or with kids that don't have.
Yeah, they're one-time. So you're saying you have a problem because the same thing is a one-time purchase, as in, like, for example, let's just go with something like Injustice 2. Injustice 2 does not have loot boxes, at least that I can say, where you use in-game currency loot boxes, but I don't believe... Oh, wait, you know what? I think they do have loot boxes, but they're really not needed. But, like, we'll just use Injustice 2 again. Let's say if it had none, but it released the TMNT pack, where you can buy the Ninja Turtles in the game. Awesome, by the way. But that would fall under in-game purchase. Yeah. Even though there aren't any loot boxes. So you're saying that the wording is not right. Yeah.
I think it's done specifically for that reason.
To cover their ass?
To cover their ass. The second thing is, this is going to backfire on them. Because now you're going to have games that just have DLC purchases or like a season pass.
And they get this label.
And they're going to get this label, and that's going to cause parents to refuse to buy this game for their kids. So this is, one, them trying to get around it, and two, it's going to fuck them. And I hope it does.
Yeah, I mean, last year, I mean, just companies like Apple began requiring the games in the app stores.
To require the odds.
At least, yeah.
And that's actually law in China. If anything is random generated,
Belgium, Germany, and some Australian states are consider pursuing that as well.
Mm-hmm. Good.
As are Hawaii and Washington.
Mm-hmm. So I think...
But New Zealand and the UK have ruled that they don't consider loot boxes to constitute gambling. Interesting.
Well...
That's what it says. It says UK and New Zealand, however, have ruled that they don't consider loot boxes to constitute gambling.
You got to think countries with game developers in them are probably going to be less likely to attack this problem.
Well, Hawaii and Washington.
Have you heard of any game studios in Hawaii?
Washington, I have.
Yeah, you got Microsoft there.
Yeah, got one of the biggest.
So,
I mean, Hawaii, okay, like Hawaii doesn't even allow you to buy like... Hawaii has a lot of like weird rules where, you know, they always say does not apply to Hawaii and Alaska type shit like that.
Yeah.
They're kind of like outside the U.S. on like certain regulations. Well,
but
Washington's a big one, man. That's a big one.
Before we colonized Hawaii, it was its own country.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but
so was to be fair though.
So was the entire United States.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, I just think that that's super problematic. That they're clearly trying to skirt. Like, the reason that the ESRB exists is because they didn't want to be regulated by the government, the video game industry in the United States. So they created this thing, this ratings board, to sort of tell the government, we will regulate ourselves. And here they're using their power that we allow them to have to skirt the actual problem. The problem is not that they have DLC or skin packs or, you know, music add-ons or anything like that, or season passes. Even though these things are kind of problematic to the gaming community, the legality of these things is not in question.
And while I completely agree with you, I actually do. I'm just going to do like a devil's advocate thing here, and it's specifically what you're saying. Some may wonder why the ESRB isn't addressing loot boxes specifically, but the ESRB president, Patricia Vance, told Ars Technica, I guess that's
Ars Technica, yeah.
that it's because a large majority of parents don't know what a loot box is, and that's parents' biggest concern is their children spending money in games, not necessarily how they're doing it. It's very important for us not to harp on loot boxes per se, but make sure we're capturing loot boxes, but also other types of purchases as well.
I don't buy it.
I mean, are you just saying that it's just because it's a cover? I mean, they kind of address their issue that...
I think that's exactly... Like, the ESRB's job is to inform parents with the rating system of things that may affect their child. And right there, they're saying, it's not our job to, inform them.
Yeah.
I mean, literally her exact words are...
Yeah.
Some parents don't understand. That's your job. Inform them.
To be fair, though, what are you going to do? Put on the back of, like... If certain places don't constitute it as gambling, can you just put in-game gambling? Like, what are you going to do? You can't you can't have a giant box like on a pack of cigarettes that says this causes cancer. You know, I mean, you
sure you can.
That's what they're. I mean, I'm just doing devil's advocate here. I'm just saying because I don't necessarily. But how do you implement putting on the back of a box that. I'm sure if you go to this
in-game gambling rated 18 and up,
but is it,
or 21 and up, depending on what
but
your
it hasn't
state.
been constituted as gambling, though.
But it is, though.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, that's your opinion.
It's not my opinion. They hire psychological, psychologists and psychiatrists and shit to manipulate the same exact psychological problems that gambling addicts have.
Certain other places aren't necessarily saying that it's gambling.
I don't care what they say. That's what
I know,
it is.
but I know. As I said, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just, I'm saying you can't really put gambling if certain places don't consider it gambling, even though it is. You just can't throw that on a box. I'm not saying that. I mean, it's an okay step, but yeah, it's not my favorite wording.
I mean, basically, they're not actually solving the problem here. This is a whole lot of like fluff and
what I'm hoping that
and everything. What I'm not solving any problem.
What I'm hoping that this does, this in-game purchases thing, that if parents, which let's be fair, I worked in retail for a total of probably 10 years. You worked in retail?
I worked in retail from the time I was 16 until the time that I was 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
Out of all the M-rated games that parents were clearly buying for their underage kid.
I told them every time.
I know, but how many of them asked? How many looked at the back and said, no, you know what? Here, I'll be even better with this. How many of them just came up to you and said, is this game good for my kid? Instead of reading the back and said, hey, this game says this has sexual content, violence, and gore. What?
Some did, but you're right. It wasn't very common.
Yeah. It was not very common. So
yeah.
It's like, it's due diligence and saying, hey, we're going to put in-game purchases here. But yeah, most of the time, I'm going to say, if parents even give a shit and ask, they go up to the person and say, is this game good for my kid? And I'm going to tell you right now, unless stores start putting out memos saying, hey, if parents ask, is this appropriate for my kid? You might want to address the loot box issue. But I don't see places doing that because that would possibly decrease sales, especially at some place like GameStop.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. They're trying to get around that.
Now, if they put it on there and someone straight up, like, if anyone asked me, like, is this a good game? I'd say I'd give them the dead truth. Yeah. No, it's not a good game. You should not buy that.
By the way,
but if they said,
just to tell you, if you ever go into a GameStop and a district manager is there, don't ask for people's opinions on games because they're going to lie to you.
That is true, but how are they supposed to tell a district manager?
Old, sweaty. I'm talking about the specific one that we had.
I guess what we're mostly saying is, while it's okay that ESRB is addressing it, because it hasn't been officially ruled by the government or something as gambling, you can't just throw it onto a game. You just can't. It might hurt a product, and I just think that I think it's stupid to say that if a game has in-game purchases that it's automatically going to be warranted as an M-rated game, like you have to be over a certain age to play it. I think that's not the right answer either.
Exactly. That's the problem with lumping all these things together. That they're basically putting apples and oranges together and saying these things are in the game.
Yeah, it's just tough. You only get a little bit of wording, and it's just like, obviously if you could write a paragraph, you could explain exactly in depth what each one. But you got maybe 3 lines that you can write something on there, and so it's
here's what I'd put on real world gambling mechanics.
Yeah, I know, but that you can't put that if
They don't need to talk about other DLC. Nobody's complaining about other DLC.
Nobody is complaining about other DLC. I'm just saying you can't put gambling on there. You just can't. It just wouldn't work. It's not constituted as gambling. It's just not.
But it is.
Yeah, I know it is, but it's not defined as gambling.
I don't care what the legal definition is. What the literal definition is fucking gambling.
I mean, that's just...
The laws about these things are fucking 25 years old.
No, I know.
The ESRB came about in the 90s, and it hasn't really changed since.
No, I know. It hasn't. It definitely hasn't.
So the organization is archaic, and I think if they're not going to properly tackle this issue, then it's time for the government to step in. I realize I'm saying that in one of the fucking most ass-backwards administrations in my lifetime, But that's what needs to be done if they're not going to fucking do this right. And I will advocate that point. I don't care what anybody else says about it. This needs to say real world gambling mechanics, and they need to leave other DLC out of it. You can't say this has apples and oranges and then label it this game has apples.
Or like say this game has fruit.
Yeah.
I see. I get where you're going with it. Mm-hmm. I totally see where Adam's coming with this. I just disagree with you can't just put gambling on it, but I do say that there is something that does need to be addressed about this, and perhaps just saying in-game purchases and lumping everything in there does not qualify as a good job. But
let me change my wording. Apples and oranges is a little too non-confrontational. This game has apples and cyanide, and then you label the game. This game has apples.
Yeah. Well.
That's a little bit more accurate to what we're talking about here, because this is a legitimately exploitative process.
I kind of think the apples and oranges and just calling it fruits was better. Because it is. You're getting something that you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
Or like saying something like, one has, like, we're going off on a tangent, but it's like, one has seeds you can swallow and one has seeds you don't.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, which one are you getting? This one has seeds, and some of those seeds you can swallow,
and some of them are poisonous.
Some of them are poisonous, but it just says fruits. Is that better?
Fruit with seeds, yeah.
Fruits with seeds.
Yeah.
That's
better. That's better. I think that's much better.
Okay. Fruits with seeds. Let's make that. Put that on there, ESRB. Fruit with seeds. Some may be poisonous, some may be edible.
It's the same. You know what? It's just as effective as what they're talking about doing, so.
Okay.